Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was exiled and claimed harem with Hinata, Temari, Yugito Kagura Mei Terumi Karui Yugito Samui Yugao Kuranai Anko to Yuya Fu Temari, Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. Wiping them away with his thumb as he held her cheek he asked. What's wrong? I'm sorry, so sorry for banishing you. She said softly as she held on to him tighter. Naruto grinned as he stepped back while wiping the tears away. It wasn't your fault, and besides I think it was for the best. He said, making her feel a little better as she pulled back. Then she noticed the red-headed woman. The room just got chilly and Naruto couldn't help but gulp. I take it you're Kagura? Tsunade asked with narrowed eyes. The one and only, Kagura said while doing a dramatic bow. She smirked and walked up behind Naruto hugging him. I'm one of Naruto's lovers and future wife. She said, making Tsunade's eyes widen as she realized what she said. One of Naruto's lovers? She asked in shock. Naruto chuckled and waved a hand trying to defuse the situation. Well, I need to restart my clan. And as you know I'm able to have multiple wives to rebuild it. But we'll talk about that later anyway. He said calmly. Tsunade then went around her desk as Naruto and Kagura pulled chairs up to the desk and sat down. They look just like Minato and Kushina, must be in the blood to like redheads. She thought to herself with a fond smile. So when will I meet with the council then? Naruto asked. Tsunade chuckled and looked down at her watch. Actually, not long from now, we'll most likely need you to be tested against various shinobi just so everyone knows what you're capable of. She explained while getting a nod from the boy. That was when Shizune entered the office with some more paperwork. Tsunade-sama, I brought you the rest of the paperwork you need to fill out. She started to say but then stopped and dropped the papers on the ground when she saw the Yondaime's clones talking to Tsunade. Her eyes were the size of dinner plates and her jaw hung from her mouth. Why Yondaime-sama? Why you're alive? She stammers looking at the blonde-haired Adonis. Naruto and Tsunade blink and look her stumped form until he spoke up. Hey Shizune-chan. I see you're doing well. He said while she blinks. And Naruto? She asks getting a nod in return. Oh my Kami. Naruto. She cried out and glomped the blonde while crying her eyes causing Naruto to smile sadly before hugging her back. Naruto released Shizune and stepped back so she could see Kagura. Shizune-chan, this is Kagura Ankai. Kagura, this is Shizune-chan. He introduced while each eyed each other up. Hey, Kagura said with a slight wave. Hi, Shizune said with suspicion. It's nice to see you after so long Shizune-chan, you're looking beautiful today. He says, making her look up and blush. Thank you, you look handsome too Naruto-kun. She stated with a fond smile. Before anyone else can speak another voice spoke up. Well, would you look at this? You're here for only a few hours and already making woman blush. The three turned to see Jiraiya leaning against the wall grinning at the sight. It's better than getting the shit kicked out of me like you do a lot. Naruto said chuckling while Jiraiya grumbled about blonde brats. So this is the pervert you told me about? Kagura asked Naruto while pointing a thumb at Jiraiya who looked shocked. Yep. This is him. Naruto said with a sigh knowing what was coming next. I'm not a pervert. Jiraiya said sounding indignant. I'm a super pervert. He yelled only to get drop-kicked by Tsunade with a twitch in her eyebrow before sitting back down leaving the twitching sage on the ground while Kagura chuckled and Shizune looked ashamed. Tsunade also chuckled and leant forward. So tell me, what have you been up to all these years? Later. With Naruto. Training Ground 7. Naruto was sat down in the middle of a field in a meditative pose, legs crossed, eyes closed and Ryujin Jaka laid flat along his legs while he held it with both of his hands. We will start your Bankai training once the Orochimaru invasion is settled down, we must not allow any interruptions. I know but it may be easier said than done, there's not many places that won't attract attention. What about that forest no one is allowed to enter? Ah, The Forbidden Forest. All I need to do is make sure Anko doesn't interfere, which may be easier said than done. Hell, she will most likely want to join in. As long as we get the training done, then there is no problem whatsoever. You should get going to the meeting. I doubt they will wait any longer. Right. Naruto's eyes snapped open as he came back to the normal realm before blinking, getting his sight back to normal. Standing up, he sheathed his Zanpakuto and took out a book from his pouch with the title, Loveless, on the front. Opening it up, he read a line out of it. When the war of the beasts brings about the world's end, the goddess descends from the sky. Wings of light and dark spread afar. She guides us to bliss, her gift everlasting. I gotta admit, I'm good at my work. He thought with a chuckle as he went to the council chambers. Just like Tsunade said, everyone was in the meeting within the hour, having got the notice that Naruto was back and willing to work with the village once more. They were only glad that Naruto didn't hate the village enough to work with Orochimaru. Even they knew they wouldn't win, it would be the Kyuubi attack all over again. Just then the doors opened up to reveal Tsunade and what they could only describe the Yondaime reborn and what looked like a younger Kushina Uzumaki. Once the three seat down, Tsunade started things off. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze has returned to help us. He has also brought his partner Kagura Ankai, and you probably know her as Shujuhi Kiho. She said, causing gasps of surprise and shock while Kagura chuckled and grinned, reminding everyone of Anko. So that's the Rinnegan. Looks intense just from looking at them. Sume thought while feeling a shiver run down her spine. Now that the demon brat is back, I can finally make him my weapon. Danzo thought with sadistic glee. And that bitch will be used for breeding stock. With the both them we may actually come through this better than we expected. Shikaku thought with some enthusiasm. Tsunade, who also enjoyed their wide-eyed looks and stammering, decided to get back on the issue and looked at Naruto. Naruto, do you know why we had asked you to return to Konoha? She said professionally. Naruto sighed and gave a nod. Yep, Orochimaru's finally making a move at Konoha. Honestly, I was wondering when it would happen. He spoke, making the council tense, knowing they had Ed up. Tsunade, knowing this will start the meeting properly, also knew then still have to sort out Naruto's role in this. Before we get started, we should discuss Naruto's contract of employment. Very well, Inoichi said with a nod. So will you be reinstated as a Konoha shinobi? Hiashi asked with his usual stoic look plastered on his face. Naruto, however, shook his head. No, I still don't trust this village. He said, making them look down. While I may trust my friends and certain other people, there are sides of the village that are too corrupt for me to just bounce back in. For now I'll just be a mercenary. Nodding his head, Shikaku spoke up. And what are your terms? Naruto just shrugged. Honestly, normal pays for whatever missions I do. I get the feeling I'll be sticking around while Orochimaru and Akatsuki is still out there, but basically just as if I was still a shinobi. Also, I will only follow orders from Tsunade, no one else. That's fair, Choza said with a smile. What about your partner, Kagura Ankai? Danzo asked with greed in his eyes while she felt sickened about thinking of what plans he had for her. Naruto narrowed his eyes and wrapped an arm around her. She will always work with me unless I say so. I don't trust anyone in the village when it involves her, especially people like you. We'll accept those terms as long as the majority are fine with it. Tsunade said while the clan heads gave a nod. Very well, as of now, you are a mercenary employed by Konohagakure. But what do you mean, Akatsuki? Shibi asked. He's probably already attracted them to us now. Danzo accused. Listen, you old fossil. Naruto growled at him. Akatsuki are going to attack here whether you like it or not. It's only a matter of time. If they can't find me, they would eventually attack the place where they know I have some of friends. Naruto couldn't help but feel anger run through his veins just by looking at the old cripple now that he knew everything he had done, well, almost everything. What he did know was that he was to blame for what happened between Konan, Yahiko and Nagato, and if it wasn't for him, Nagato would never have joined Akatsuki. And that will draw you out in the open. Sume said since she knew what it was like wanting to protect your pack. Yes. Naruto said with a nod. Akatsuki don't care who they kill. If they know by attacking Konoha will drive me out, then they will make sure they do as much damage as possible, and we all know that there is no way to stop them from breaching a village if they want to, take Gaara's kidnapping for instance. He said, causing them to remember that despite all of Tsunagaku's security and knowledge of Akatsuki, they still found their way into the village easily without anyone knowing until the last moment. Very well. Hiashi said, acknowledging what he said, knowing it to be right. What do you know of Orochimaru's plans? Tsunade asked Naruto. Not a lot, Naruto said with a sigh. But I do know he has a large force as well as Kabuto, his right-hand man, and Sasuke Uchiha. He said with a growl at the Uchiha's name. We can take this opportunity to get the Uchiha back. Koharu said with a smirk. Naruto stared at them in disbelief as if not believing what was said. There's going to be an attack by Orochimaru, and you're thinking about getting the Uchiha back. What the is wrong with you people? You would just let people die in order to get your precious Sharingan back. The Sharingan is invaluable, Homura said with a stern gaze. Naruto laughed outright at that. That is rich, isn't it? How long have you all gone on with no Sharingan? And yet this village is still standing. It's power-hungry people like you that end up destroying the village. He gazed before his eyes hardened into resolve. I promise you, when I met the Uchiha, his head is mine and anyone who gets in my way. He trailed off as he held out his hand to a wall, confusing people, until the entire wall was blown away. That will happen to you. He said, directing his gaze at the three elders, but more precisely Danzo, when he felt something coming from his concealed eye. Why is chakra circulating to that socket, unless it's not as useless as he wants people to think? Oh, I got my eyes on you, bastard. Understood, but what we need to do now is to test you in your abilities to see what you can actually and give the shinobi of the village an insight as to what you can do if they work with you. Tsunade said. Very well, where and when? Chunin Exam Stadium. It will allow anyone to watch and gives the best room to fight, and how about in 2 hours while I inform everyone of what's going to happen? Tsunade said while getting a nod. Well, that's all for now, dismissed. Tsunade said while everyone gave a nod and left. And Naruto, she said, getting his attention. Do your best, don't hold back. Later. With Naruto and Kagura, Naruto was walking down the main street on his way to the training ground. Seeing as they didn't have much time left, Kagura was holding his hand while leaning on him, making all people around them jealous at what they each have. Naruto looked at Kagura and smiled at how peaceful she looked. You know, for someone who has a high amount of bloodlust in a battle, you sure are a softie. He said with a chuckle as she slapped him on the chest lightly. All thanks to you, I've never felt at such peace before. I was always on the run before, having to kill to survive. I just got used to it, and then I received my Zanpakuto. It made me become accustomed to killing, and sometime I enjoyed it. She said, a little sad at the end. Naruto chuckled at her confession. Sometimes when I use the Kyuubi's chakra, I enjoy killing, although it's when I kill people like bandits, rapists and murderers. You shouldn't feel bad about it. For all you know, someone is alive because of you. Kagura smiled at Naruto's attempt to cheer up. Thanks, Narukoi. What are you going to do about Sasuke in the invasion? Naruto chuckled evilly. There's nothing to do except for the fact that I have to kill him. If he ever got Itachi's eyes, God knows what he will be able to do. He would be the next Madara Uchiha, only more insane. Kagura smiled into his arm as they walked closer to the training ground. You better not lose by underestimating him, or you and my side will get very comfortable. She threatened. Naruto chuckled nervously at that threat. You know I won't lose, especially to him. He said with a smirk. Do you know who you will be fighting now? She asked since she didn't know anyone. Well, for taijutsu it will most likely be Maeda Guy since he's the best in Konoha. Genjutsu will be Kurenai. I doubt anyone's as good as she is. Ninjutsu will most likely be Kakashi, I'll show him exactly what he missed out on, and Kenjutsu could be Yugao Azuki or Genma Shiranui. You're not worried? She said, more of a statement than anything. Not really. I'm confident in my skills, and besides they know what I'm capable of from the bingo books. He said before they went to go start the test. Chunin Exam Stadium. When Naruto and Kagura got to the stadium, they noticed everyone was there. Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Anbu, and even some civilians along with the clan heads. Apparently the news about Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze being the Rakudo Sennin heir had circulated throughout the village. Now they wanted to see the Rinnegan in action against some of the most powerful people in the village. Tsunade smiled seeing Naruto appear. Getting a nod from him to start, she stepped forward. We are here today to test Namikaze Naruto in taijutsu, genjutsu, ninjutsu and kenjutsu. Everyone cheered, making Naruto a little startled that people are excited to see him fight. Will Maeda Guy step forward please for the taijutsu portion? Tsunade stepped back with the rest of crowd as Guy stepped up. Yosh. Naruto-kun, it will be fun to test your flames of youth. The green spandex wearing man yelled, making Naruto sweat drop along with everyone else. Naruto chuckled and said, it will be a blast going against you too. Giving the man a nod as sign to start. Naruto vs. Maeda Guy. Guy then turned serious and dashed forward at speeds many couldn't follow. Unfortunately for Guy, Naruto could follow. As Guy threw a punch at Naruto, he caught it effortlessly but noticed the power behind it as the wind and dust blew behind him from the force of the punch. Not bad, Guy, but you have to do better. Bringing his right leg up, he kicked Guy in the face, sending him sprawling back until he put his hands on the ground to flip himself up. Naruto shot forward at faster speed and threw a punch at Guy, who barely dodged it by moving his head but got a cut on his cheek. Guy repaid him in kind and grabbed Naruto's outstretched arm before pulling him down and kneeing him in the face. He then kicked Naruto up in the air, jumping up to hit Naruto. He never made it as Naruto regained his balance in midair and kicked Guy at the top of his head, sending him back down. Guy hit the floor hard but was back on his feet within seconds. In the air, Naruto was coming down fast. Guy jumped out of the way barely before Naruto punched the ground, causing a massive crater to appear while a tremor struck the area. Guy, taking the smart idea, jumped back a good distance. That strength, it was just like Tsunade-sama, however that was all him, no chakra whatsoever. Stands. Holy shit! Exclaimed Kiba. How in the world did he do that? Half exclaimed, asked Tsunade. That was similar to my strength, only I need chakra added to do something like that. Kagura stepped up grinning. Naruto has trained his muscles for the past 4 years by using weights all the time. What you're seeing is just the beginning. It's like my Sage Mode strength. Jiraiya commented as he hadn't seen what Naruto is truly capable of. This is amazing, exclaimed Shizune as she hadn't seen anyone use strength and keep up with Guy even with his weights on. I take it this is just the beginning. Tenten said sarcastically. Yosh. Naruto-kun's flames of youth shine brighter than ever. Yelled Lee, causing Neji and Tenten to sigh at his antics. I don't think I've seen anyone match Guy before. Commented Kurenai. This is just starting, Kurenai. I get the feeling they haven't even broke a sweat. Said Kakashi as he had put his book away for now. Fight. Naruto looked up at Guy, who had an unusual serious face on him, and to Naruto he just couldn't imagine this guy screaming about youth, or the like. Guy, you're going to have to take your weights off if you want to beat me. It seems you are right. Guy responded. He had only taken weights off out of respect for an opponent worthy of it. Taking the weight from around his wrists and ankles, he threw them to the side, causing an earthquake. You should remove yours as well, Naruto-kun, said Guy as he wanted to fight at full power. Naruto gave a nod before he took off his trench coat and his shirt. He then threw them over to the side, causing a crater appear while a tremor shook the ground, causing everyone's eyes to bug out. What were these people? Now Naruto stood topless with the necklaces around his neck. All the girls drooled at his ripped muscles, which kept flexing as he moved. Hell, even Tsunade drooled a bit. Both fighters vanished from everyone's sights, only reappearing when they either hit each other or dodged. Every now and again craters would form on the floor. Small craters, but hell, they're making craters by punching each other, that's saying something. Whenever their punches connected with one another, everyone could feel the force coming from them, as they would get hit with wind ever so slightly. They were alerted when they heard a crash and saw Naruto picking himself out of the wall of the stadium. I got to hand it to you, guy. You really are worthy of being called a taijutsu expert. Crossing his arms in an X formation, he started pumping chakra through his body, making glyphs appear all over his body glowing bright blue. Stands. Ooh, this is gonna get good, said Jiraiya, recognizing what Naruto was doing. What's he doing? Asked Tsunade, a little nervous and anxious. That's Yondaime-sama's gravity seal, isn't it? Asked Kakashi, making many go wide-eyed. Yep, that's what helped Minato become the Konoha no Kiroi Senko, Konoha's yellow flash. It was his first step towards the Hiraishin. Explained Jiraiya. Guy is going to have to release a couple of gates if he wants to remotely win, said Kakashi. Fight. Gravity seal. Release. As soon as Naruto said that, the glyphs his body pulsed before vanishing. Everyone felt the sudden chakra hitting them softly and oddly calming. Before anyone could even blink, Guy was sent soaring through the stadium wall. Everyone looked back to see Naruto in the exact same spot. Not even the dust had moved, a true testament on his newfound speed. Everyone, just by looking at Naruto, could feel the power oozing off of him. Before anyone could say a word, though, there was a sudden blast of chakra and the rubble that were around Guy were blown off. Hachiman Kaiman. Kai. Hachiman Kuman. Kai. Naruto looked in the dust cloud that had picked up when Guy opened the two gates, when all of a sudden a blur appeared soaring at him. Lifting his arm to block a kick, he felt the strain on his arm as the kick held a lot of power. Guy then kicked Naruto with his other leg, sending him flying up. Naruto, not expecting it, didn't have time to block, the same going for the knee to the chin while he was still in the air. Guy then started kicking Naruto all over the place, much like Lee did against Gaara in the Chunin exams. However, as Guy went for another punch, his arm was grabbed. Looking up, he saw the smirking face of Naruto before he was punched back into the ground, making a crater. Naruto then fell back to the ground and flipped to land on his feet in a crouch, waiting for Guy to resurface. Guy eventually stood back up, but in a relaxed pose, and smiled at Naruto. You have certainly improved, Naruto-kun. Let's finish this with more attack, he said with cheerful yet serious manner. Ready when you are. Naruto returned, crouching down slightly. The next second, the both shot off towards each at inhuman speeds. As Naruto came close, Guy threw a punch aimed at his head, only for Naruto twist under it and punch Guy in the gut with tremendous power. Ikatsu. A second later, Guy spat globs of blood out of his mouth before he blasted back against the stadium walls, creating a large indent of his body before collapsing down to the ground in a heap. Tsunade appeared by Guy and ran a diagnostic jutsu over him and was relieved to find out he was okay, just knocked out. A punch like that would have split a person in half, and yet I could tell he wasn't using all of his strength for that. Standing up, she turned to Naruto, who had a serious face on him. Winner by knockout, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Stands. Holy shit, what was that? Kiba exclaimed. It's a special technique he uses for a quick kill. Kagura explained. That was more than quick, but why is Guy still alive then if it was a killing technique? Yugao asked, confused. Be thankful that Naruto was holding back, or the green spandex wearing Guy would have been split at the torso. Kagura said with a bloodthirsty grin, causing people to back away. To think he had advanced so far in such little time, he truly is a prodigy of his time. Hiyashi said with pride at his old friend's son. What's worse is that I doubt he would have improved this much if he had stayed within the village. Well, not since they'll want him at a certain level in case he snaps. Sume said with a scowl. Back with Naruto. People then saw all the cuts and scrapes on Naruto sizzle up before completely healing, astounding them as no one had saw someone heal that fast other than Tsunade. So who am I facing next then? Naruto asked as he watched medics go over to Guy to tend to his wounds. Tsunade stepped forward as Guy was carried off of the field. Will Kurenai Yuhi step forward please for the Genjutsu portion and Anko Mitarashi for part ninjutsu? She said with a smirk while Naruto grinned. Kurenai and Anko stepped forward and stood a few yards from Naruto ready to get started at any second when Naruto spoke up. Let's see what you got Kurenai-chan, Anko-chan. Naruto said with a smirk as he got ready. You look worn out from your batch with Guy there Naruto-kun. Kurenai said with a small smile. Naruto looks over himself to see dirt and wipes it off. You don't have to worry about me beautiful, just worry about yourself, same goes for you too Anko-chan. He said with a smirk while they blush at being called beautiful. Oh you're going down Gaki. Anko said taking a kunai out with Kurenai doing same before Anko shot forward at Naruto. Time for me to get some more of that delicious blood of yours. Naruto chuckled and pulled out his own kunai, only this was his Hiraishin kunai which made Anko raise her eyebrows at. You have to cut me first. He exclaimed as he shot forward. Tsunade stepped forward as Guy was carried off of the field. Will Kurenai Yuhi step forward please for the Genjutsu portion and Anko Mitarashi for part ninjutsu? She said with a smirk while Naruto grinned. Kurenai and Anko stepped forward and stood a few yards from Naruto ready to get started at any second when Naruto spoke up. Let's see what you got Kurenai-chan, Anko-chan. Naruto said with a smirk as he got ready. You look worn out from your batch with Guy there Naruto-kun. Kurenai said with a small smile. Naruto looks over himself to see dirt and wipes it off. You don't have to worry about me beautiful, just worry about yourself, same goes for you too Anko-chan. He said with a smirk while they blush at being called beautiful. Oh you're going down Gaki. Anko said taking a kunai out with Kurenai doing same before Anko shot forward at Naruto. Time for me to get some more of that delicious blood of yours. Naruto chuckled and pulled out his own kunai, only this was his Hiraishin kunai which made Anko raise her eyebrows at. You have to cut me first. He exclaimed as he shot forward. And now, Chunin Exam Stadium, Naruto vs. Anko and Kurenai. Clangs of metal rang through the stadium as Naruto's Hiraishin kunai batted against Anko's regular kunai. As Naruto pushed against Anko she grabbed his wrist and flipped over him to stab him in the back only for him to roll out of the way and flip away while chucking his kunai at the purple-haired woman. Anko ducked under the flown kunai and flung her own at Naruto's face while she attached thin wire to the ring edge, only for him to grab to it with 2 fingers before it touched him. Gonna gave to do better than that Anko-chan. He said in a mocking tune. Anko chuckled and bit on the end of wire and flipped through hand seals. Kaden. Ruka no Jutsu. Hot white fire exploded from her mouth shooting along the wire while burning the ground, but what she didn't expect was for Naruto to grin and throw the kunai in Kurenai's direction redirecting the attack. Kurenai seeing the flames coming at her called out her own jutsu. Genjutsu. Hanachiri Nuko. As soon as the words left her mouth her body exploded into pink petals which soon vanished. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he saw Kurenai vanish and concentrated clearly. A second later he spun around and grabbed the thin air, only to grab someone's hands. It was then revealed to be Kurenai who had materialized behind Naruto in a genjutsu to strike his back with a kunai. How? She asked, eyes with shock at the fact he knew where she was. Naruto chuckled and pointed to his eyes. The Rinnegan can see through most genjutsu with a bit of concentration, too bad for you though. He said with a chuckle before palm thrusting on her chest just as he flipped backwards over Anko who was about to stab him, landing behind her he stabbed her in the back only for her to turn into mud. Tsuchi Bunshin no Jutsu. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Spinning he came face to face with a large fireball that blew out of the real Anko's mouth, holding up his right hand. Shinra Tensai. An invisible blast shot forth from his hand and blew the fireball away as well hitting Anko causing her to blown into a wall making her cough up blood. Stands. Whoa, they're showing no restraint in this match are they? Ino said as she eyed the match. Not a lot of people can last long when these two are paired up together. Guy said as he had woken up not long ago. Huh, why? Tenten asked confused. Teamwork. Kakashi said with a chuckle. They know each other's skills better than they do their own. They would work together where Kurenai would cast genjutsu and attempt to take the opponent out while Anko would do the job while the enemy is incapacitated. Simple, yet effective. Neji said with a smirk. Yes, but I'm curious how long Naruto can last against them. Kakashi said. You think he can't win? Hinata asked with a frown. Well, I don't know. I've seen Kurenai's and Anko's strategy work plenty of times and I don't honestly know how Naruto is at reading people's tactics, so I guess we just have to see. I put my money on Naruto. I learned never to underestimate him once, I won't do it again. Kiba said with a smirk, remembering his Chunin match against him. Kagura stayed quiet for a change, watching her man do what he does best, kick the shit out of those weaker than him. Fight. All of a sudden he was constricted by vines tailing up his arms and legs as a tree sprouted up from behind him, forcing him to be tied against it while Kurenai appeared in front of him. Megan. Jubaku Satsu. Just as she was about to stab him, chakra was blown out of Naruto, breaking the genjutsu as the tree and vines vanished. Sorry Kurenai-chan, he said while she looked confused. Before he used his powers over gravity, he threw Kurenai against a wall, causing it to track under the pressure. A second later a voice called out. Sanae Tajishu. Looking to his right, he watched as a dozen giant snakes soared towards him, not giving him enough time to move as they bit into his arms and legs, pinning him in place while one snake hovered over his neck. Now what will you do, Naruto-kun? Or will I finally have my blood I so dearly want? Anko said while licking her lips. Naruto tried to move his head only for the snake to move closer to the neck, making him stop when he noticed poison on the tips of the teeth. That shouldn't be a problem. Kyuubi should neutralize the poison, and if not, then the chakra from the Rinnegan will purge it. Naruto chuckled as he looked at Anko. Sorry Anko, but no blood from me today. But let me show you something I was taught from the Raikage, Raiden no Yoroi. Yellow lightning shot out all around Naruto, causing the snakes grabbing onto him to start sizzling from the heat before they melted. Naruto cracked his neck and smiled at Anko. It's amazing, isn't it? Sending out Raiden chakra from every point in my body in order to improve my speed and reaction time to increase to near the speed of light. Because of its speeds, it's impossible to predict moves due to the sheer speed at which the users move. But not only that, it increases the physical strength of its users by a factor of 5, making even the sharpest of steel weapons useless. Anko's eyes widened in shock, seeing such a jutsu as lightning fared all around Naruto while his muscles expanded, making him look like a sort of bodybuilder while his hair flipped about in the air. So the Raikage taught you that? She asked in disbelief. Naruto chuckled. Oh yay. I trained with him for over 6 months before he finally taught me it, knowing I would need everything possible for the future, although this is my first time using it in a proper fight. He said as he clenched his fists, causing lightning to become more potent and powerful there. Stands. He was taught by the freaking Raikage. Tsunade asked Jiraiya in shock, not believing it. I didn't know either, Tsunade-hime. Jiraiya said in shock. Naruto and the Raikage are almost like brothers. Ever since Naruto saved 4 of their shinobi, with one of them being the Nibi no Bakeneko, he had offered to train Naruto along with his brother Killer Bee, the Jinchuriki of the Hachibi no Kyogyu. They had grown into a strange family bonding. Kagura explained in a rare serious tone. That boy always seems to surprise everyone. Genma said with a chuckle, remembering the Chunin exams all those years ago. He wouldn't be an Uzumaki otherwise. Ibiki said with a chuckle. Fight. Anko once more held up her hands and called out. Sanae Tajishu. Dozens of snakes shot forward at Naruto, only for him to grin at Anko before he practically flew at her, causing all snakes to be killed when they come on contact with him. Holding his left arm out to the side when he came close, he yelled out. Rariato. His arm slammed into her stomach, causing her to be thrown back against the stadium wall, where she slid down, bleeding from the mouth with a nasty gash on the back of head while her clothes were torn where he made contact. Son of a bitch, she muttered as she tried to move but found herself unable. Throughout all this, Naruto seemed to have forgotten about Kurenai, who had recovered a while ago, so it was at this time when Naruto deactivated his lightning armor that wires wrapped around him, restraining him completely. Don't tell me you forgot about me, Naruto-kun, Kurenai said as from behind him as he tilted his head to look at her. Honestly, I thought you were out of it for a while, he said sheepishly. Kaden. Ruka no Jutsu. Once more flames tore down the length of the wire at Naruto, who simply sighed and called out, Shinra Tensei. A large force blew the wire from around him, cutting them up as well as blowing the fire away and creating a crater underneath him. Turning around, he held out his right hand at a shocked Kurenai and said, Bansho Tenon. Before Kurenai knew what was happening, she lifted up off her feet and pulled through the air into Naruto's awaiting hand as a kunai was pressed against her throat. Anko's currently unable to move right and you're incapacitated, forfeit now. Kurenai sighed as she looked over at Anko, seeing her straining herself from trying to move. Fine, I forfeit, you win, she said with a sigh, causing Naruto to smile while he let her down and pocketed his kunai. Stands. Well, I'll be damned, Kakashi muttered before shaking his head in disbelief. He won, Sakura said with a small smile at seeing her old teammate defeating two Jonins. Yosh. Naruto-kun comes out victorious once more. Lee cheered for his friend. I wonder who he'll be facing next. Ino commented as she looked around at the possible candidates. I think Yugao-san is next for Kenjutsu, Shino said while pushing his glasses up his nose. This'll be good, Genma commented. Why? Kiba asked with a raised brow. Yugao is the top swordsman in the village. No one has ever been able to beat her before, Yamato said with a chuckle as he wanted to see how the Namikaze fared against Yugao. Well, we'll see shortly, I suppose. Back with Naruto, Tsunade had rushed to Anko to heal her but found out that she wasn't too injured. The only reason she was unable to move properly was because of the amount of electricity forced into her body all at once. You should be fine, Anko. You're not too injured badly. She called some medics over. Ha! Tell that to my back, it's killing me, Anko said with a groan as the medics picked her up and carried her over to where Guy was. Kurenai chuckled at her friend's antics and turned to Naruto. Good luck in your next matches, Naruto-kun. Thanks, Kurenai-chan, I may actually need it, he said with a smile. He could already tell he had used up about half of his chakra. He just hoped he could finish the ninjutsu portion of the test quicker. Kurenai chuckled and walked off to the stands to sit with the others while Tsunade stepped forward. Now for the Kenjutsu portion, your next opponent is Yugao Azuki, she declared while the long-haired purple woman stepped forward with her sword already displayed. I hope you show me a good time, Naruto-kun, she said with a smile and blush realizing her innuendo. Naruto chuckled as he gripped Ryujin Jaka. Well, we're in a fight right now, but maybe that can come later, he said with a smirk and a wink causing her to blush more. But it's good to see you after so long. Yugao smiled gently at him. And you too, I had actually planned to teach you in the ways of the sword after your mission to bring back the Uchiha, but I'm glad you have taken up the profession. Naruto smiled as well. I kinda didn't have a choice. My katana is sort of an extension of myself, I guess you could say, so I had to learn Kenjutsu. Yugao's eyes widened hearing what he said. An extension? Does he mean what I think he means? Is your katana perhaps a Zanpakuto, by any chance? She asked, making his eyes widen. You know of them? He asked her only to receive a nod. I thought their knowledge would be lost over the years or that they were a sort of myth, he said while she chuckled and shook her head, causing her hair to become wavy, making her looking beautiful. They are a sort of legend, but I sort of have my own Zanpakuto, she said holding up her own, showing it to be a normal katana with a rectangular tsuba with inward curved corners with curved slits above and below the blade and a series of curved lines embossed on either side of the blade. It has a reddish-brown hilt. What's it called? Naruto asked while giving the katana a calculative eye. Yugao smiled fondly at her Zanpakuto. Soda no Shirayuki. Naruto chuckled before something said. That's why in the bingo book you're called Konoha no Kori no Tenshi, it suits you well. he said with a grin causing her to blush. What's your Zanpakuto called? She trailed off as Naruto pulled out his katana and she could feel the power coming off of it. Ryujin Jaka, my pride and joy, he trailed off as he settled into a stance as did Yugao. Well, should we start? He asked as she gave a nod before both vanished. Naruto vs. Yugao. Stands. What's that Zanpakuto thing? Ino asked saying it wrong. Zanpakuto. Jiraiya corrected. And I'm not entirely sure. All I ever heard were bits and pieces, like how they are formed from a fragment of your soul. They are like your lifelong partner that will always be there, as well as they're sentient. Sentient? As in alive? Kurenai asked confused. Yes, they are alive, Kagura said as she unstrapped her scythe from her back. This is my Zanpakuto. Usually they have 3 stages: sealed state, Shikai and Bankai. The higher the state the more powerful. This is in its Shikai form. For some reason I can't control it completely and so it stays in this form, whereas Naruto has much better control and keeps his in its sealed state. However, they're supposed to very rare and yet lately more people are getting them. She explained, getting nods of acknowledgement. So, they said they have names for theirs. Does your Zanpakuto have a name? Sakura asked. Yes, they all have a name. It's what makes them unique from each other. She paused as so she could stroke the scythe along the blade. And this is called Beni Akadokiami, Crimson Moonless Dawn. It sounds beautiful. Ino whispered in awe. And deadly to boot. Kagura chirped with a grin before looking back at the battle. Fight. They both met in the center of the stadium with swords clashed against one another. Naruto pushed against Yugao with more strength, causing her to falter, to which Naruto took advantage and kicked her in the stomach and following up with another kick, pushing her off her feet. Naruto ran at Yugao hoping to catch her in the air when she suddenly flipped to her feet and lashed out with a kick only for him to block with his forearm. Yugao then flipped to bring her other leg up and grapple his arm before once more twisting around and kicking him in the face with the back of her heel. Blood shot out of Naruto's mouth from the strength of the kick as he was lifted off the ground. Stabbing Ryujin Jaka in the ground, he spun around in Yugao's direction and pulled his katana out of the ground and swung down on the purple-haired Anbu only for her to block. Naruto pushed down on Yugao, who fell down to one knee. Damn, Naruto-kun's no slouch when it comes to strength. To think he has grown to be such a man. Pushing up on her blade, she quickly rolled out of the way, causing Naruto to hit the ground where the sword cut into it like it was butter. Yugao, taking the opportunity, kicked Naruto in the ribs, leading him to flip through the air and crash into the wall. Is that all you got, Naruto? Show me what you're really capable of. Naruto steps away from the wall while dusting himself off and smirks. Ask and you shall receive, he says as they exchange swords once more. For the next minute they both fought with everything they had, disappearing and reappearing when they could, only to cause slight shockwaves whenever they struck with stronger blows. As Naruto and Yugao rained down on each other, blow after blow, they would continuously try and find a way past each other's defenses only to counter against each other further on. A second later, Yugao made for a slash at Naruto's neck, causing him to go wide-eyed before his instincts took over, allowing him to tilt his head back as he then flipped backwards by kicking off Yugao, causing her to falter while he landed a good distance away. Naruto panted as sweat trickled from his hairline, mixing with the blood from the small cut above his eyebrow that Yugao had managed to get contact at the last second of dodging. Yugao also was panting as she sported multiple cuts, but she couldn't help the smile that came on her face. You know, when I heard I would be fighting you in Kenjutsu, I never expected a fight like this, she said with a chuckle which was shared by Naruto. I'm with ya there. This is without a doubt the best sword fight I've ever had with anyone. Then again, the only times I did fight, the other person was practically fighting blind with the damn weapon, he said with a smile before straightening out. What do ya say we bring out the big guns? He asked with a smirk. Yugao shared that smirk and gave a nod. Only way to solve this, she said as she raised her Zanpakuto in front of her and turned it in a circle counterclockwise. While she was turning it, chakra exploded out of her, causing the air to become cold and fog to roll in, and what was even more strange was her eyes flashing white every so often. Naruto also raised his Zanpakuto up in a horizontal position as chakra exploded out of him, causing a distortion the air around him as the area started heating up as furs of fire came off the chakra surrounding Naruto as the floor gained scorch marks. May. Soda no Shirayuki. Dance. Sleeve white snow. White chakra exploded out of Yugao while picking up dust as the floor around her started turning to ice while the surrounding area dropped temperature quickly. As the dust settled, it revealed her Zanpakuto having changed to where the blade, hilt and tsuba turned completely white. The tsuba became a hollow snowflake-like circle and a white ribbon forms from the pommel from the end of the handle. Bansho Isai Kaijin to Nace, Ryujin Jaka. Reduce all creation to ash, flowing flame blade. Fire engulfed the katana with such unnatural heat that the surroundings started to catch fire just from the intensity. The fire from around the katana grew and enveloped Naruto himself, creating a hazy image of a phoenix while Naruto seemed to be in a state of peacefulness as the fire shot up above the stadium into the sky, turning the once blue sky, red. Stands. Such power is unbelievable, whispered Anko in awe at seeing the power roll off of then waves. Did you ever know Yugao was this strong? Ibiki asked Kakashi as he could sense her chakra levels reaching heights he didn't know she had. Kakashi however shook his head. Even when he was in Anbu and on the same team as the purple-haired woman, he had never seen this side of her before. No, this is my first time as well. Hey, have you guys noticed? She looks happy. Uruka asked as they looked at her closely. Yeah, I've not seen that smile since Kurenai started not really wanting to go there. Hayate. Genma however was fine with saying his name, despite being best friends with the man. Maybe because she hadn't been able to go all out before. Jiraiya commented, which got some nods. Naruto's really is powerful. Neji whispered in awe. Ooh, they're fighting it out now. Ino said in excitement, causing everyone to pay attention. Fight. Naruto opened his eyes slowly while lowering his Zanpakuto slightly to view Yugao's Zanpakuto and couldn't help but admire the beauty of it. That's a truly beautiful Zanpakuto, Yugao-chan. He commented, bringing a smile on her face. Yugao also gazed at Naruto's burning Zanpakuto and how the flames traveled up his arm almost to his shoulder and could feel the intensity of it, and not just in the heat sense, but in the power of it, how it seemed to bring a sense of calm over her despite the nature of it. Your Zanpakuto is quite intense, I've never seen such a thing like it before. She said with a small smile. Naruto chuckled and brought Ryujin Jaka backward in a reverse grip. Why don't we see which is the stronger? Fire. Or ice? Let's. She exclaimed before following his example. Naruto brought his blade up in a swing while calling out. Haifuki no Kajuchi. Fire-blowing gavel. An incredible amount of fire burst from the top of the blade as it soared across the battlefield, burning everything in its way from the intensity of the heat while also causing all viewers to start to sweat from the heat generated. Tsugi no Mai. Hakuren. Next dance. White ripple. At the exact same time, Yugao called out the name of her own technique as she punctured the ground once, creating a large ice circle underneath her feet, and then following up by puncturing the ground in front of her 4 times in a semicircle. She then took a battle stance as the ice particles begin to flow up from the protrusions she made in the ground. Building up some more, she gathered them at the tip of Soda no Shirayuki's blade, then fired an equal amount of ice at Naruto's fire attack. As the two attacks came into contact with each other, they fought against each other as Naruto and Yugao poured more into the attack as they started to grow larger and larger. Seeing the imminent danger, both shinobi jumped back as the joint attack exploded, sending fire and ice everywhere. Jumping backwards more, Naruto planted his feet on the wall and pushed off as hard as he could, causing cracks to appear as he flew at Yugao. Passing through the smoke from the previous attack, he came out on the other end with Ryujin Jaka in a reverse grip once more while Yugao stood in a defensive posture. Flipping forward, he landed on his feet in a crouch position and aimed the point of his Zanpakuto at Yugao and called out. Reienden. Lightning fireballs. Several fireballs shot out of the tip of the blade at Yugao, who hastily stabbed the ground with Soda no Shirayuki. She called out. Juhaku. White tree ice shot out of the epicenter of the stabbing to meet head-on with the fireballs as the ice grew higher, forming something akin to a wall, causing the fireballs to impact with it, creating one more explosion. Just as Yugao was going to attack Naruto, she found herself pinned to the wall behind her with a sealed state of Ryujin Jaka at her throat. Looking down, she could only look on in shock as Naruto stood there with a smirk on face, Zanpakuto in his right hand and kunai in his left, pointing at her stomach ready to stab. How? She asked in shock. Naruto grinned while his eyes danced with amusement at seeing her shocked state. While you were observing the explosion, I used one of my Hiraishin seals that I placed on you earlier when we're battling out like crazy, and because of all of the fog and smoke, you didn't see me flash here. He explained with a cool gaze as he stared down at her. Amazing. She whispered in shock, realizing he could probably have won at any given time. Well, I guess I have to forfeit this match. You definitely won, Naruto-kun. She said as she re-sealed her Zanpakuto. I would love another rematch some other time, Yugao-chan. Naruto said as he sheathed his Zanpakuto and pocketed his kunai. Yugao chuckled at that. Oh, you can count on that, Mr. Namikaze. She said with a smirk before she limped back to the others. Stands. Now that was a match I would have paid to watch over and over again. Kiba said with a grin. He certainly has earned his rank. Sum said with a lusty tone. As long as he stays on our side, I'm alright. Inoichi said with a chuckle. He has the same determination as his parents, they would be proud of him. Hiyashi said with a smile. Isn't it your turn now, Kakashi? Kurenai asked with a grin, seeing the copy nin sigh sadly as he looked down at Battle Arena. I suppose so, huh? He asked rhetorically as he started to descend the steps. Back with Naruto. Naruto had just finished healing himself off to the point where you could see that his chest and back didn't have a spot of dirt on. Well, he may get hurt more now, seeing as he's only in his pants and shoes with his Zanpakuto strapped to his belt and necklaces dangling from his neck. Tsunade stepped forward for the last time. For the final round, the ninjutsu portion, Kakashi Hatake, you're up. Tsunade stepped off once more while Kakashi lazily walked up, book in hand. Kakashi looked up at Naruto from behind his book and saw the look of seriousness and decided to put his book away for now, as he knew it would piss Naruto off now, and the fact he knew Naruto would destroy it, something even he wouldn't chance. Kakashi knew that this could be the most trouble he had ever had, as he knew Naruto would have a lot of ninjutsu in his arsenal, considering he has the Rinnegan, which allows the user to be able to learn any jutsu. There was also the fact that he didn't really know what to do jutsu-wise if Naruto can just absorb them all. Yep, this was going to be one of the hardest fights ever. And to think he neglected him all those years ago for a spoiled Uchiha, what a fool he was. I guess I'm going to have to get serious here. Kakashi said as he pulled his headband up, revealing his Sharingan, making Naruto smirk, glad he wasn't underestimating him. That depends on if you want to survive. Naruto said with a smirk. Naruto vs. Kakashi. Stands. Who do you think will win? Asked Choji. I put my money on Blondie. Anko said with confidence. Why are you so confident in him? Kiba said with a frown. Because I already got my kicked by him, as well as everyone who's faced him, so it's only right he gets his swipe too. She said, causing some snicker. Yamato, who was listening in, decided to comment. This could go either way. While Naruto has the jutsu and the strength and possibly the speed that can beat Kakashi Senpai also has a lot of jutsu and much more experience. Come on, exclaimed Anko as she now stood next to Kurenai. Naruto has experience, probably more than any of us. He's been fighting for his life ever since he was banished, and he was trained by the Raikage and God knows who. She exclaimed in frustration, knowing Naruto was stronger than he had shown. Kurenai chuckled. He could probably take us all out if he wanted. He's a one-man army. She said clearly. Kagura chuckled. Don't worry. My boy will take care of Kakashi easily. Your boy? Ino asked with a raised brow. Kagura smirked. Oh yes, he's all mine, and I mean all. She said punctuation the all, making her go wide-eyed as well as some women. They're starting. said Shikamaru, hoping to defuse the situation. They all then looked back at the two who went through hand seals. Fight. Kaden. Goryuka no Jutsu. Out of Kakashi's mouth came an enormous dragon that twisted into the sky before rushing at Naruto with intense speed, which was giving off enough heat that everyone could feel it. Sweden. Sujinheki. The water molecules in the air then formed a very powerful wall of water that surrounded Naruto, blocking the fire dragon as it hit. Even though the dragon had hit the wall and was now gone, Naruto then put his hand in a seal before yelling. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. The wall of water then swirled from around Naruto so that it turned into a dragon in front of him with blazing yellow eyes. It was then sent soaring at Kakashi, who just barely dodged out of the way before it hit the ground and surprisingly made a crater. You're very good at your Sweden manipulation. Kakashi complimented Naruto, who grinned. Both fighters then went through the same hand seals and yelled. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Both of them inhaled sharply before the blew a large ball of fire at each, intending on defeating the other. However, instead of blowing up, they turned into more of a flamethrower which batted against each other for strength. Naruto discreetly made a clone without the use of hand seals, as he had used them so many times it was natural to him. The clone went through a couple hand seals before shouting. Futon. Atsugai. A miniature tornado shot out of its mouth and merged with his fireball, which overtook Kakashi, causing an explosion, sending them both back. Kakashi flipped upright before jumping into a tree with his back to it and working on a tactic. Naruto, seeing Kakashi missing, knew he had gone into a tree, but which one? Grinning, he put his hand in a seal before slamming his hand on the floor and calling out. Ikazuchi Hakai. Lightning poured out of his hand, which then shot along the ground towards the tree lines, which cut through the ground, breaking up. The lightning then hit a tree and blew up, causing many more trees to go down with it. However, no Kakashi. Stands. Everyone stood gaping, not believing this was the dead last who they used to make fun of. Now this was a real shinobi who could kill. Who would have thought Naruto would become this strong? Neji mused. Kagura snorted. You guys haven't seen anything yet. Fight. Kakashi, seeing the potential danger if he kept hiding, decided to charge a Raikiri in his hand. Jumping from the tree line still in midair, he thrust his hand forward like a whip, and out of it came a massive dog in the form of lightning. Naruto, seeing the danger, put both hands forward and said, Fujutsu Kyuin. It was then, though, that the lightning hound hit the barrier that had been found and was slowly being absorbed into Naruto. Kakashi, seeing the jutsu being absorbed, was impressed. He knew it could absorb any jutsu as he's seen before, but to see it absorb his jutsu was still fascinating. Stands. Whoa! Exclaimed Ino, amazed that Naruto actually absorbed the jutsu. He really can do that, whispered Sakura in shock, since she had not seen it before. Shino pushed his glasses up his nose. My bugs are very afraid of him. His chakra is apparently too large and it frightens my bugs, he said, shocking them at the fact someone having too much chakra almost seemed laughable. He just keeps getting more troublesome, muttered Shikamaru, although he wouldn't outwardly admit he was impressed with Naruto as it was too much energy. Who would have thought the council actually banished him? It's a good job he still sees us as friends, or we would be dead, said Kiba, who kind of pointing out the obvious. Hana, his sister, smacked him upside the head. Wait to point out the obvious, runt. She then looked at Naruto's soaked body from when he used the Suiden jutsus. But I wouldn't mind a piece of him, she said, ing her lips, while Kiba's eyes widened in shock while his mother soon smirked. I'm with you there, she said, also ing her lips. Kiba fainted. Kagura chuckled and eyed Hana and Sum before saying, I'll have him take you up on that offer. Both Inuzukas snapped their heads to her to see her wink at them, so what did they do? They grinned and winked back at her. Fight. Naruto smirked as he looked at Kakashi's astonished look. He loved it when people had that look once he done something amazing. Naruto held out his right hand where chakra started to gather. Let's see you handle this one, Shinra Tensei. Before Kakashi knew what was happening, an invisible force blew the entire field in front of him sky high, along with the few trees in the arena. He barely had time to dodge before the force clipped his shoulder, sending him flipping away. Give up, he taunted. Stands. Now that's what I'm talking about, exclaimed Kiba, who was grinning like a madman at seeing the power that attack held. He should have used more power for that. Kagura muttered, but audible for everything to hear. What do you mean, Kagura-san? Asked Hinata. Shinra Tensei is a jutsu that varies on the amount of chakra is put into it. What you saw was a basic version of it. Should Naruto-kun want to, he could probably destroy Konoha by putting much more into that attack. He used it a lot on our travels to wipe out bandit camps quicker. She explained, shocking them at how powerful that jutsu really is if he ever wanted it to be. Fight. Kakashi got up on his feet, a bit battered up, but smirked as he wanted this fight to last a while at least. Not a chance, I still have some tricks up my sleeve. Kakashi then put his arms in an X formation before chakra started pouring out of him as he shouted. Hachiman Kaiman. Kai. Veins started popping out the top of his head as his chakra started to rock the ground, causing stone and dust to levitate as he yelled. Hachiman Kuman. Kai. Just when Naruto thought that was it, Kakashi's skin changed color slightly before the ground beneath him cracked and shouted. Hachiman Simon. Kai. Naruto looked shocked. He thought Kakashi could only open one or maybe two. Seems he wasn't the only one who had been training. He barely came out of his shock as he noticed Kakashi had disappeared. Oh shish. He wasn't able to finish as he was sent tumbling away before being kicked back one more. He was then kicked upwards, and just when he thought he could regain his bearings, Kakashi appeared behind him and wrapped his arms around Naruto and spun extremely fast straight to the ground, causing a crater and a mushroom cloud picking up. Kakashi, however, had hoped away before Naruto hit the ground. Stands. They all stood in shock at what Kakashi had done. No one knew he could go so far with the gates, never mind his strength he hit Naruto with. Is he dead? Kiba asked, a little worried for Naruto, but also got a smack on the head by Hana. Of course he isn't, Baka. She said, glaring at him for even suggesting it. Tsunade looked at the crater in worry. She knew how powerful that move was, and by the size of the crater along with no movement, she was about to go check when Jiraiya grabbed her shoulder, causing her turn around. He could see the worry and couldn't blame her. Then again, she didn't know what he was truly capable of. Calm down, Tsunade Haim, he's fine. Tsunade frowned at him. Jiraiya, that could have killed him. I have to stop this. Jiraiya gripped her shoulder tighter to keep her from turning around. Tsunade. Naruto has to do this, he has to prove himself. Tsunade frowned. She knew what he meant by that, however others didn't. Prove himself for what? Asked Shizune, who stood close by. Tsunade looked back at the crater that was slowly being visible. Naruto has been put down all his life by his peers, being told he was too weak, or he wasn't fit to be a shinobi, by fighting Kakashi, and winning. It proves to everyone here that he isn't the same Naruto anymore. The fact that Kakashi neglected him as well as more of a told you so Naruto is hoping for. Sakura, who stood by, frowned at the Kakashi neglecting Naruto statement. Kakashi never neglected Naruto, he taught us loads of things. Jiraiya frowned at the Pinkett. Really? What did he teach you all? Sakura looked up at the Gamma Sanin, confused. He taught us all we know. He taught Sasuke a lot of Kaden Jutsu and even the Chidori. She said if it was the simplest thing. And what did he teach you and Naruto-kun? Kurenai asked, who was also listening into the conversation. Sakura thought and couldn't think of anything useful that he taught them. After Sasuke left, Sakura worked under Tsunade and Naruto was banished, left to survive on his own. Jiraiya smirked as he was glad Sakura understood. Good, you understand. Naruto wants to show Kakashi what he missed out on by showing him his power. All of Naruto's friends let those words sink in and realized Naruto had to do this to show everyone he truly was the son of the Yondaime, but more importantly that he was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Kagura, however, wasn't going to stay quiet. Come on, you lazy bastard. If you stay down, then there's no tonight. She yelled out while getting a few blushes and tick marks from the woman. Fight. I got to admit, said Naruto as he stood up from the crater with some cuts on his chest from the rocks with blood dripping down from his hairline. His pants were also torn a little. I really didn't expect you to release 3 gates. he said, chuckling before he paused and looked at Kagura in the stands. It's UWHO suffers from that. Not me. So ha. He shouted childishly while everyone blinked owlishly but nearly face-faulted when Kagura shouted back. You. Women. Naruto muttered to himself before putting his game face on. Naruto then crossed his arms. Looks like I'll have to take this seriously. Gravity seal. Release. Chakra exploded from him as the ground crumbled under him. I'm not finished yet. Focusing chakra through his body, sparks started to come off of his skin like static before he shouted. Raiden no Yoroi. Lightning blew out from Naruto, completely enveloping his skin. Unfolding his arms, he held them up chest level and unclenched his hands and watched as lightning dance around his fingers. Kakashi smiled at Naruto. He had really come far. The worst thing though was he knew Naruto could do more if he wanted to kill him, and he had no doubt he could, to be honest. I'm impressed, Naruto, you really have gone far. You've seen nothing yet, Naruto said with a smirk. Holding up his right hand, lightning started to dance around it until he shouted. Hado number 63, Reikoho. A large amount of yellow lightning fired from his palm, aiming at Kakashi at breakneck speed before he sued his new speed to get out of the way, where the blast then hit the ground, ripping it apart as it tore through the earth. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the damage and chuckled. I doubt I have much strength left for the match. What do you say? One last move? He asked Naruto. One last move. Naruto agreed, as he too was feeling weakened from the constant fights. Kakashi then flipped through a few hand seals before his right hand gripped his left arm's wrist before lightning started crackling, and then there was a massive surge that started shooting all over the place. Naruto also held out his right hand as chakra started swirling around, creating a bright blue ball. A second later it started to turn light blue as wind started to gather, creating a four-pointed shuriken-like shape started forming around the ball. Both shinobi shot off at each other, leaving a small crater behind where they stood. As they got close, they edged their hands back and thrust forward. Futon. Rasengan. Reikiri. Both jutsu clashed, causing a massive flash of light followed by an explosion that ripped the ground up around them as a crater started forming with the rocks jutting upwards. The flash let down before another occurred, and two forms flew out of the smoke and landed on the grounded, hard as they kept rolling a bit. With everyone, Tsunade ran for Naruto and slid down next to him, rolling him over so he lay on his back. She laid her palms on his chest as they glow green using a diagnostic jutsu. He looked like he had been in a war. His pants, the only remaining clothing on him beside his boots, were torn to the point that you could see his black boxers slightly, causing Tsunade to blush slightly, which was unnatural for her. He had cuts all over his body and arm, which she was currently trying to heal. Sakura also did the same with Kakashi, who was worse off. His entire left arm had been scorched and bruised, tears and rips had appeared in his clothes. He was definitely beat up as he looked like shit. The entire crowd stood in shock at what had happened. Naruto had more or less beaten Kakashi. What's worse is the fact Naruto barely used any of his jutsus that he has, including his Rinnegan jutsu that can level a village. Never mind the fact he had beaten some of the top shinobi that they have to offer. Naruto blearily opened his eyes but shut them quickly as the sun hit them. Opening them again, he came into the sight of Tsunade smiling down at him. So how'd I do? He asked her. Tsunade smiled at him proudly. Even though he could do much more, it was still impressive. You did great, but why didn't you use any of your other jutsus like your Rinnegan ones? She asked as she was curious about them. Naruto chuckled. They are too dangerous, plus didn't want everyone to know all about me, now do I? He asked rhetorically. Tsunade shook her head at him. If she was honest with herself, she wanted to see how powerful he really was. She looked down at his chest and noticed all of his cuts healed, showing a perfect body, one she would die for on a man. Snapping out of her thoughts, she helped Naruto up, whom then went over to pick his clothes up from a crater they had formed earlier. He then put his shirt and trench coat on, much to the dismay of many women. Tsunade looked over to Sakura, who was now lifting up a conscious Kakashi who looked pretty damn beat up from the looks of it. She smiled inwardly, and Kakashi didn't even have a real battle with Naruto, and look at him now. Tsunade looked at Naruto with a smile and said, "Come to my office tomorrow. I already have a mission I want you to check on. I'll also have your team ready there as well, and I understand that Kagura will be going as well." Naruto gave a nod and left the field with Kagura to go get some sleep in a hotel. Otogakure. Underground lab. Orochimaru was stood within one of the many labs underneath his own village. Stood before him was the best apprentice he could have ever asked for, Sasuke Uchiha, his right-hand man Kabuto Yakushi. With them were two supposedly dead shinobi, Tayuya and Kimimaro Kagaya. Sasuke had come leaps and bounds ever since he left Konoha. His already impressive speed saw a huge leap, allowing him to move huge distances in the blink of an eye as if teleportation. He also greatly increased his speed at making hand seals, being able to do many in a blur and launch an enormous amount of weapons just as quickly, which had been proven when he had been ordered to kill countless shinobi as a test. He has learned to control his emotions in a complete calm state when fighting his opponents to be able to calculate the most effective way of destroying them despite their abilities. He had improved exponentially with his Kaden and Raiden to the point where he can use Chidori to emit throughout his entire body and many more Kaden jutsu without using much chakra thanks to the more advanced chakra control. His Sharingan had also improved to the point that just with eye contact he can place anyone in a genjutsu before they actually realize. His reactions had also improved where he can dodge almost all attacks. Unknown to Orochimaru though is that Sasuke can control a creature like Manda by using his bloodline without having to offer anything for his services. By all rights Orochimaru would place him as a borderline S-rank shinobi, and would be much stronger if he was able to gain the Mangekyo Sharingan. He had also changed his outfit now to wearing a white long-sleeved shirt which was open at the torso, with a smaller version of the Uchiha crest on his collar. He wore black pants with a blue cloth hanging from halfway up his stomach to his knees. He also wore a purple rope around his waist, tied in a bow. He also had a sword now, or rather a zanpakuto. The weapon of choice was a when sealed it takes the form of a white sakabato, reverse-edged sword, with a cross guard looking like three lightning bolts converging at the point where they meet the blade and hilt. Kabuto however was the same person as always, only more he now had his own plans to gain more power like had always wanted, all he needed was time. Tayuya however had turned into a beautiful woman, she was now 5.6 feet. Her red was flown down her back with two tufts either side of her face with a strand dangling between her eyes, and she wore a hat on her head like all those years ago. She wore black sandals, black slacks and a low-cut white tank top with a red phoenix spreading its wings on while displaying her stomach clear as day. Over her tank top she wore a small black jacket the same size as the top. She now had a different weapon to her flute which had been destroyed, which she replaced with a katana with an H-shaped tsuba and white weaving around its hilt. Years ago she was completely loyal to Orochimaru, but nowadays she would take any opportunity to get away from the man, or creature whatever the hell he is, as long as she would be safe. Kimimaro hadn't exactly changed all that much, except for getting taller and more buffed out thanks to his bloodline as it had evolved. Now that his illness had been cured he had become a more formidable opponent. Orochimaru looked up at his strongest shinobi in his force. In 7 days we will launch a full-out attack on Konoha. Sasuke and Tayuya, you will attack from the north gate. Kabuto, you will attack from the west gate and I will attack from the east gate. Also I've hired someone that will help us in our invasion. He will meet you Kabuto but will most likely be a bit late. Also Kimimaro, I want you at the north gate at a later time. Gurren will accompany you but she will be sent to the west gate. Sasuke smirked. Konoha will finally burn, I can't wait. Well, at least you've grown some patience Sasuke-kun. Kabuto commented with a smirk of his own. Orochimaru chuckled as he pulled out a book. It may not be that easy Sasuke. Opening a page in the book he held it to Sasuke. Read that. Sasuke scoffed and took the book and started to read it along with the other three. Name: Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Age: 18. Hair color: long blonde hair with black highlights. Eye color: Rinnegan. Alias: Shinku Senko, Crimson Flash. Height 6 feet 2. Weight 125.215 lb. Heritage Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage, and Kushina Uzumaki, Red Death. Rank Class S Rank. Skills Exceptional Taijutsu, a ninjutsu monster, Master Kenjutsu artist, quite skilled in Fuinjutsu and a chakra powerhouse, never known to run out of chakra, can see through most genjutsu. Bloodline The Rinnegan, descendant of the Rakudo Sennin, allows the wielder to use all element manipulation. Nature Affinities Kaden, Suiden, Futon, Raiden, Doden, Mokuden, Hyoten, Shoten and Gravity. Wielder of the Rasengan and the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. All four of them had their eyes wide as saucers at reading that, not believing the blonde midget from 4 years ago to actually be that strong. Isn't that the blonde little shit who used to spout off about being Hokage all the damn time? Tayuya asked with a shocked look. The very same Tayuya-chan, however he will never become Hokage anymore now. He spoke with a smirk. Huh, why? Kabuto asked confused. He was banished 4 years ago for failing to bring Sasuke back to them, and recently they have hired him a mercenary to help fight against us in Akatsuki. Sasuke's face was full of anger. He had thought with all of his training he would be far past Naruto and would never be seen as the weaker one ever again. Now that he had read this, he realized how delusional he really was. He would only have to fix this by killing him. He is of no problem, I'll kill him, he said with anger visible on his face. Tayuya looked at him in disbelief. She knew he was probably the strongest other than Orochimaru, but even she wasn't stupid enough to underestimate someone with a record like that. Still though, I can't believe this is the same midget from 4 years ago. I wonder. She stopped thinking to get any hopes up. Orochimaru chuckled. I'm sure you will, Sasuke-kun, but don't underestimate him. You've done that one too many times. Remember, 7 days from now, we attack, he said, getting nods from everyone as they left. Let's see how much you've improved, Naruto-kun. With the Rinnegan you could possibly have unlimited potential within you, just like Pain, he thought to himself with a manic chuckle. Konohagakure. Invasion Day. Naruto's apartment. Ever since the test, things had been hectic. Like for one, Naruto and Kagura had been sent out on missions with various teams to reintegrate with them to get a better understanding of how all the teams work. The people who Naruto and Kagura like working with the most though is Kurenai, Yugao and Anko. It was like the perfect team for all kinds of mission. Naruto and Kagura were the powerhouses that create all the destruction and killing. Kurenai would be the one to create genjutsus to confuse the enemy and make them fall into traps easier. Anko would be a demolitions expert or the interrogator, and Yugao would be the stealth one, gaining information quicker without having to create a ruckus. And what was better was they had all begun hanging around each other more lately. They would go the bar at night to drink. Naruto would flirt but always go back home with Kagura. Much to the other females' annoyance, they would even eat out together. They were quickly becoming fast friends, and Naruto had some hope that when he had to leave, they would come with him. Not that he would force them or anything, but it's nice to have people you could relate to, and by relate he means how they are lonely in some way. No one would go out with Anko, with her being the former apprentice of Orochimaru. The village had some serious trust issues. Yugao had lost her only lover in the Suna Oto invasion and hadn't been with anyone since, and Kurenai simply couldn't find a guy who wanted to be with her for and not her looks. So if things went to plan, then Naruto would hopefully have more people on the road. Except now was no time for thinking about all that. Today is the day that Orochimaru would strike, along with Kabuto and Sasuke Uchiha. Just the day before, Gaara had arrived alongside Temari, Kankuro and Matsuri as the main force with battalions of Suna shinobi. It had been a fun sight to see the usual stoic Gaara smile at Naruto and give him a man hug, after not seeing each other in a while. It was even more fun to see Temari hug the dear life out of Naruto while ignoring the females' dark auras that shot up around them as soon as the Suna Kunoichi even entered Naruto's personal space. All plans had been made about how the battle would go. There were only 3 entrances into the village: the North Gate, East Gate and West Gate. At the North Gate Naruto, Kagura, Kurenai, Yugao and Anko as well as many shinobi would defend that gate where they had intel Sasuke Uchiha attack from that side with numerous shinobi. At the East Gate, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Sakura, Team 8 as well as their own large force would confront Orochimaru there once and for all. And at the West Gate, Kakashi, Team 10 and Team Guy would confront Kabuto and his merry band of thieves. Various shinobi such as the clan heads and the like were placed all over the place to better defend their home. They only hoped everything went to plan. As if. Right now though, shinobi all around the village were preparing for battle. The last time Orochimaru attacked they were completely caught off guard, but not this time they would destroy him. They only hoped they wouldn't lose someone in the battle. Inuzuka clan compound. Kiba stepped out of the clan house, flanked by Akamaru, Tsume Inuzuka and Kuromaru, Hana Inuzuka and the whole Inuzuka clan. Good look pup, Tsume told Kiba with a smile. Don't worry ma, these guys won't know what hit them, Kiba said with a smirk. Hana smacked him over the head. Don't get too overconfident brat. Sorry, Kiba said scratching the back off his head. It's just that after seeing how strong Naruto was, I want to be like that, he said with a sigh. Well, all people ever want from you is to do your best, but if you keep comparing your skills to someone else, nothing good will ever come from it. Besides, I'm proud of you as it is, Tsume said with a fond smile. Well, I'd best be going. Team 8 is situated at the East Gate to confront Orochimaru, he said as he started to walk away with Akamaru before turning back. And thanks ma, don't die on me. You neither sis. Hana chuckled and smiled. Just do your best. Oh, and if you see Naruto-kun, give him a kiss from me, she shouted the last part as Kiba had started running only for him to trip and splutter, leading the others to laugh. Aburame clan compound. Shino and his father Shibi left the compound house along with the rest of the clan to get ready for the battle that is sure to come on their doorstep. Be careful out there Shino, Shibi cautioned his son only to get a nod. I will father. Good. Don't hold back, give them everything you have got. I will make sure the enemy doesn't leave Konoha father, it would be best I met up with my team, he said, getting a nod from his father before he jumped away. Shibi sighed as he looked at the sky. Look after my son, he whispered to thin air. Hyuga clan compound. Hiashi, Hinata and Hanabi along with most of the main house and branch family were outside of the clan ready for the foolish Oto non that will attack them. Hinata. Hiashi called out to his eldest daughter, who turned around to look at him with a determination he had only ever seen in her mother. I know I haven't been the best father, but I am proud of the woman you have become. Your mother would equally as proud as I am, he said, shocking her and her sister who had rarely heard him say anything nice. Thank you, father, I shall do my best in the battle to come, she promised him. Hiashi chuckled slightly. I know you will. Hinata turned to Hanabi and gave a hug, which she responded with tightly. Good luck Hanabi-chan, do your best. Hanabi smiled as she hugged her sister back. Thank you sister. Make sure to do the same, I'm sure Kiba wouldn't like it if something terrible happened to you, she said, causing Hinata to blush. Letting go of her sister, Hinata smiled. I should go meet up with my team and Hokage-sama, she said, getting nods from her family before jumping away. Hanabi turned to her father with clear worry etched on her face. Will we make it out of this? Hiashi looked down at his youngest and smiled. Of course we will, just stay positive, he said, causing Hanabi to give a small smile and a nod. Yamanaka clan compound. Inoichi and the rest of the Yamanaka clan were getting prepared to protect their clan home while Ino was getting prepared to go meet with her team at the West Gate. Be careful out there Ino, we're still not sure on just who Orochimaru has recruited, Inoichi warned to the platinum blonde. Don't worry daddy, I'm not alone out there, I have my team with me, she reassured him with a bright smile. Inoichi shook his head in amusement. Even in dire situations she could always be so calm. I know, but this is Orochimaru we're talking about, We have no idea what he's capable of anymore. He explained. Ino sighed and turned serious. Daddy, I'm not a little girl anymore. If I want to become the Kunoichi Asuma sensei wanted me to be, I have to do this, and besides, I doubt we'll get anyone we can't beat. She said with complete confidence. Inoichi just looked at his daughter with pride, glad to see she was taking everything serious, even if it did take for her sensei to be killed fighting Akatsuki. Did I ever tell you how proud I was of you? He said as he gave her a hug, which she gladly returned. Thanks, Daddy, Ino said as she pulled away while wiping a few tears away. I gotta go join up with me team. Okay, good luck, her father said with a smile as she jumped away. Come back safe, he whispered. Akamichi clan compound. Choza had been ordering the clan round, preparing the defenses for the clan compound as well as various parts of the village, while Choji was preparing to meet her team and prove to everyone he wasn't the coward he was all those years ago. Are you ready, Choji? His father Choza asked. Yes, it's time to kick some, Choji said as he strapped his bow staff onto his back like his father. Good. Be safe out there, my son, and kick some Oto, Choza said with a grin. Choji retuned the grin with his own. Already planned on it, he said as he turned to leave. See you later, Dad, he said, jumping away. Good luck, my son, Choza whispered before he went back to building defenses. Nara clan compound. Shikaku had just been going over all the tactics and making sure everything was perfect. While he was doing that, Shikamaru was just equipping the trench knives that he had been given by Asuma in his last moment of life. Are you ready, Shikamaru? Shikaku asked his son. Yeah, I guess, Shikamaru said with a sigh. I just can't believe all of this is happening so soon after the Sandaime died. Shikaku also sighed but perked up. At least this time we're prepared for Orochimaru. Shikamaru chuckled. And we have Naruto with us to take care of Sasuke. He sighed as he fingered the trench knives in his pouch. I can't believe how things have changed so much in the last 4 years. Shikaku clasped his hand on Shikamaru's shoulder. All we have to do is make sure that we all live tomorrow and create a better future. Before anything else could be said, Yoshino Nara, Shikamaru's mother, rushed out of the house and grabbed Shikamaru in a hug. Be safe out there, she said as she released him. Oh, and when this is all over, invite Naruto-kun over. I haven't seen him since he was 12 years old, she said before rushing back into the house, leaving 2 stunned Naras. Women, Shikaku said, shaking his head. Well, I've gotta go meet my team before Ino kicks my, Shikamaru said, shaking his head, walking away, leaving a chuckling father behind. Naruto and Kagura's apartment. Naruto and Kagura had spent the whole night just having nothing else whatsoever, just wanting to spend as much time together with being intimate. The reason for this is because they knew that anything could happen in a large battle such as the one that wasn't long away. Right now, though, they had just finished gotten dressed in their battle outfits, only newly modified as they realized that their old outfits were getting outdated. Naruto now wore steel-toed black combat boot along with a pair of baggy black cargo pants with various extra pockets for scrolls, a shuriken and kunai holster strapped to each leg which hold his Hiraishin kunai now that they are all he uses. He also had a utility belt with several pouches on it along with scrolls for easier use. He wore a tight sleeveless black top that was made like a second skin which shone off his muscles as clear as day. On top of that, he wore a black sleeveless trench coat that had crimson fire running along the bottom much like his father's. The sleeves had been ripped off to show his bare arms, leaving the edges jagged. On the back of the trench he had the kanji for Shinku Senko, Crimson Flash, in gold stitching with the Uzumaki spiral on the right and the Namikaze clan crest on the left, while trench coat's collar stood up covering his neck. Around his neck was also a beautiful silver chain necklace where it held a replica of a phoenix along with another beautiful necklace he had received from Tsunade Senju. And last but not least, Ryujin Jaka strapped to his left side in his utility belt, showing off its beauty while also being perfectly placed for a quick draw. Kagura now dons a modified crimson halter neck top with the Namikaze clan symbol across the chest and a black hoodie in the back. She also possesses a large medical pouch resting on her left hip over an ankle-length half-dress-like sash that held lightning-like strike along it. She wore fishnets around her knees and elbows while she held a kunai strap on her bare right hip. Her beni akadokiami was tied to her back, secured perfect to grab with her right hand. "So are you ready to kick some ass?" Kagura exclaimed with a bloodthirsty grin while fiddling with a kunai. Naruto chuckled as he wiped Ryujin Jaka clean, making it spotless. "The only I'm kicking is Sasuke's, but everyone else is free game," he said as he placed his Zanpakuto in its scabbard. Kagura smiled at Naruto with glee. "You're so kind. I haven't had an opportunity to get blood reacquainted with my beautiful scythe," she said as she wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. Naruto kissed her before realizing something, letting go of Kagura, who looked at him strangely as he walked over to the sword stack. He lifted a sword from it. "You're going to use that? I thought you wanted more training in it first," Kagura asked. "I've been training with it in my inner world for a while now. It's time I took it for a tryout," he said as he looked at the blade in fascination and remembered when he first got it. Flashback. Kusagaker. Hotel room. Naruto was laying down next to his girlfriend and possibly future wife if rebuilding the clan was still on the list. However, he could not sleep for what he didn't know, but he did feel like he was meant to be somewhere, like there was something he had to do that was important, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Just as he was about to try and get to sleep, a voice broke through his thoughts, considering it was coming from his head. "Naruto, we must talk right now, there's something important to discuss," Ryujin Jaka said to him through his mind. "Huh, what? Just go to your inner world, I will be there." Sighing, Naruto shut his eyes when all of a sudden he was knocked out. Inner world. Appearing in his inner world, Naruto looked around and couldn't see anything except what was meant to be there. "Ryujin Jaka, where are you?" "I'm here," he heard a voice call to him. Looking at the direction, he saw him standing there waiting for him to walk over. "What's the problem?" Naruto asked, confused. "There's someone you need to see," he said, confusing him even more. "There's someone else in my mind?" he asked with a raised brow. "Not exactly." All of a sudden a blackish red energy dropped down beside Ryujin Jaka before it started to show a shape, and when it was clear, Naruto looked shocked to hell. What the hell? Standing in front of him was an identical copy of him, only everything about colors was the opposite, like he was a reflection of himself. "I told you he'd react that way," his doppelganger exclaimed in victory while his voice seemed a little disembodied. "This is you, or rather I should say this is your hollow," Ryujin Jaka explained, sort of. "My hollow? What the hell is that?" "What he means is that I'm all the negative part of you. The hate, violence, bloodlust, the lot, and eventually if you don't gain control you'll end up killing everything and everyone you love." "What? I would never do that." "Yes you will, Naruto. As much as I hate to admit it, but eventually you will keep all of your anger inside you bottled up, until something happens and snap, you lose control. Just like you do with the Kyuubi." "Where is the Kyuubi anyway?" "The little fox shit can't get in here. This is your inner world, your Zanpakuto world so to speak. And me, I'm the part that you need to control, otherwise eventually the bloodlust and hate will be too much for either of us and we will be a real monster. And I don't mean the little kitty story monster, I mean full on, kill whatever you want monster. If what you say is correct, then how will I control it? We merge. Simple as that, and don't worry about being transformed into something ugly and monstrous, you will look exactly the same. What you will gain though is a mask. This mask will allow you to use my powers freely, but only if you have trained with them. The mask usually breaks off after a certain time limit, so you need to train with that on all the time to keep it on longer. That's all I have to do. Don't treat it so easily, kid. If you lose control with the mask on, then all hell breaks loose. You need to train the use it longer and also to control your urges, which over time shouldn't be hard. Also you will get a new Zanpakuto." "What? But I already have Ryujin Jaka." "Don't worry Naruto, this would be a secondary Zanpakuto, it will be the catalyst for your hollow, like I am for your powers of the Shinigami." "I see, this all a lot to take in." Can anyone gain a hollow side to them like you are? Naruto asked with raised brow. Yes, but only those with Zanpakutos. They must have the hate like you do, or pain of loss, grief, hell, even jealousy can bring out the bad in someone. Do not forget that not everyone with Zanpakutos is good, there will be evil people with them, and they will have some sort of hollow part in them. That's why I'm offering to merge. Usually I would just fight you for ownership over your body, but trying to corrupt someone who has the Kyuubi in them and retain their pure-ish soul is a fool's job. This is the only way we can both survive, and I know you need the power, life won't be easy. Naruto thought about it for a second and had to admit to himself, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he would be able to protect his loved ones much easier now. Very well, how do we do this then? He asked. Inner Naruto smirked and started to disintegrate from his feet. Simple. I will just become one with you. He spoke as his body turned into pure white chakra which swirled around for a second before shooting at Naruto, causing an explosion. As the smoke settled, what looked like white skin was cracking all over Naruto before it all broke as it disintegrated into nothing. Naruto gasped, getting his breath back from the rush of power he had felt a second ago, and if he admitted it, it felt more powerful than ever had. He could truly see the potential for such strength. Naruto then heard a clang, and looked down to see a second Zanpakuto resting on the ground. This sword was a dado with a black blade instead of the normal silver. The cross guard has 4 prongs bent out to form the shape of the manji, which is the kanji for ban, meaning full, as in full release. A short length of chain with a broken link at the end dangles from the base of the hilt. Looking at the scabbard that lay next to it, he noticed that it was also black with a red ribbon charm hanging from the top of it. There were also white intricate patterns running along both sides which seemed to glow slightly. Picking up the sword, he swung it a few times and knew that this sword was his. He could also feel the hollow energy coming from it, or more precise, his hollow energy. Picking up the scabbard, he tied it to his left waist and placed his Zanpakuto into it, ending with a C. As he held it, all information rushed to his brain all about his Zanpakuto and this mask he is able to use, as well as techniques to help with his progression in what he was now. I think we'll have a wonderful relationship, Tensa Zangetsu. You know its name already? Ryujin Jaka asked in slight shock. Yup, it's like it already a part of me, like I've always had it but not been able to take a hold of it. I feel whole. Which just shows that it was truly meant for you. You must come back here to develop your training every night if you want to be able to use your mask in dire situations. Also, you will be able to use Tensa Zangetsu without your mask on. Your new Zanpakuto just helps to keep the mask under control in a way. Naruto smiled and gave a nod. Thank you for everything, he said before he left his inner world. Just after he left, however, a new form appeared besides Ryujin Jaka. It was Tensa Zangetsu. He appeared to be a young man with wavy black hair that flown to one side while wearing a large black overcoat with tattered edges along the bottom and a hood attached to the back. Despite looking young, he has the eyes of someone who has lived a long time while full of wisdom, as his face seems quite blank, not allowing emotions to show. I see you like your new form. Ryujin Jaka commented. It is strange, I feel like a completely new person. The new Zanpakuto, Tensa Zangetsu said. Well, you are. Despite you have been an inner hollow the moment you decided to become a Zanpakuto, you gained a whole new identity, but even with that, should Naruto for some reason lose control, he will become what you once were, and be a mindless beast if his power is not tamed. I understand, I will do what I can to help him in the trials to come. He said as he could sense something else in the world that felt like Naruto, but different as well. Do you think we should have told him about his mother and father? Ryujin Jaka asked Tensa Zangetsu. We have no place to inform him. When they are ready for it they will, but it will only be when Naruto really needs them. I only hope that when it does happen, he doesn't attack his father. Yes, but I think Naruto will surprise us when that time comes. Ryujin Jaka said with a smile while Tensa Zangetsu gave a nod. End flashback. Naruto had ended up telling Kagura everything about what had happened, and to his joy she didn't see him as any different, but he had managed to control the mask for over an hour without it breaking and learned how to use Tensa Zangetsu without problem. Naruto's side is strapped Tensa Zangetsu on his left side while Ryujin Jaka was on his right. It was good thing he was ambidextrous. Naruto walked up to Kagura and gave her a quick hug and a kiss. Be careful out there. Orochimaru most likely knows I'm here and you're with me. Who knows what he'll do to try and get to me, he said as he gave a small but loving kiss. You know I can take care of myself, she murmured as she settled her head on his chest. No matter what mood she was in, she always seemed to be able to relax like this. Well then, let's go, love, Naruto said as he slapped her before leaving the apartment while a flustered Kagura soon followed after. Hokage Tower. Tsunade stood in her office looking out one of her windows at the village below her. It was now empty, a barren land making it look just like Ghost Town. Not long ago they had moved everyone towards the shelters on the Hokage mountain while the shinobi forces all suited up for the invasion. When she took up the mantle of Hokage, she had never expected to face something like his. Obviously it's not the same thing as a war, but just as bloody, especially when they're being attacked. Now though, she never realized just how much Konoha meant to her, especially to the point in giving up her life to protect it. Now she could understand how all the previous Hokages felt when they fought their last battle, and why her brother Nawaki and boyfriend Dan died for the village. She only hoped that same fate didn't happen to those she cared about this time, especially Naruto. She knew how alike he was to his father, giving up his life to allow everyone else to survive, just like her brother and lover. If she didn't know better, she would say they were all related somehow. Are you worried? Turning around, she found Jiraiya standing with a serious look on his face. Sighing, she turned back to the window. I just never expected to be facing what Sarutobi-sensei faced 4 years ago, and almost the exact same circumstances. We're stronger now, all of the rookies are Jonin level, hell we're the Sannin, and then there's Naruto's team, he said with a chuckle at the end. Tsunade chuckled at that one as well. Ever since the group of 5 had been hanging around with each other, they had been known as Naruto's team. Strangely, no one cared about Hat as they honestly saw Naruto as the leader. I think when Naruto and Kagura eventually leave, Kurenai, Enko and Yugao will turn missing Nin to leave with him, she said with a smile at their loyalty to Naruto. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and walked forward to stand next to Tsunade. Why would you think that? Although he had a pretty good idea why. Tsunade chuckled. He's everything they could ever want. A strong leader, full of confidence, good at inspiring people, and personal reasons. Enko has been ostracized ever since Orochimaru turned traitor. No one's ever trusted her outside of her small group of friends. The village practically treats her like she is Orochimaru. I think with Naruto she sees a way out of her loneliness with someone who understands her better than anyone else could. Kurenai can never find someone to love because people just want her for her body, leaving her heartbroken when she realizes that she may never find someone to love. The only men who treat her with respect are Naruto, Guy, sometimes Kakashi and Asuma, but that just cut down the list. With Naruto she can find the life she always wanted, even if he has a harem to re-establish his clan. Yugao. Ever since her ex-lover Hayate was killed 4 years ago, she had never smiled, barely went out with her friends and took dangerous missions. Now Naruto came back, she smiled more frequently, hung around with her friends and just seemed more laid back and relaxed, especially when she spars with Naruto. Tsunade finished with a smile at the way Naruto can touch people to get them to open up. Shame she was so much older than her even though she may not look it. Jiraiya nodded silently before looking at the blonde buxom woman. What would you do if they wanted to leave? Tsunade chuckled. You'll just have to see now, won't you? She said as she turned to look at the door as it was knocked on. Come in, she ordered, expecting some random shinobi when she got Gaara in his full battle form. Hokage-sama, Orochimaru is close by now, he said in his monotone voice. Very well. Tsunade said with a sigh before heading towards the door as she turned to look at Jiraiya. You coming? We got an invasion to see to, she said, causing Jiraiya to chuckle before he and Gaara left the room with her. Later, North Gate, Naruto stood with Kagura, Kurenai, Anko and Yugao all in their battle outfits with a battalion of their forces behind them ready for Sasuke and his own forces. Naruto was getting anxious. He could finally test himself against someone of Sasuke's caliber. He wasn't arrogant to believe that he could beat Sasuke easily. He knew he would have used some forbidden jutsus from Orochimaru, and if he was right then he wouldn't be an easy opponent. Where the hell are these guys? Anko muttered, annoyed, drawing some chuckles. Patience, Anko. Just be alert. Naruto told her, which she actually took as a command. She's right, Kagura commented, causing Naruto to groan. These guys are talkin'. They're sweeting time to actually attack. They'll be here. Sasuke's probably taking his sweet time getting here. Yugao said as she fingered her Zanpakuto on her side. You all know the plan? Naruto asked the girls. Yup. Anko said with a smirk while the others gave a nod. Are you sure that you should face Sasuke alone? Kurenai asked, worried. Yes. Naruto said with a sigh. Even he won't accept anyone else to fight, I must do this. He said before looking ahead, seeing figures approaching in a flash of 2 red dots. They're coming, everyone get ready. He ordered everyone. East Gate, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Sakura, Kiba, Hinata and Shino were all stood at the gates exactly like Naruto and his team, waiting for the forces to attack, which was causing them to become impatient. Tsunade and Jiraiya were worried about facing Orochimaru, not because he's strong but because he would do anything whatsoever to get his goal done. The last time he had been in Konoha he had brought 2 Hokages back to life. They only hoped he won't repeat that action. The others were more anxious than anything, ready to get some action, which was the cause of their adrenaline. Hokage-sama, where is the cage? Sakura asked as she looked around, expecting Gaara around. Tsunade chuckled. Gaara's following Naruto. What? Why? Kiba asked, confused. Because Naruto will be fighting Sasuke, and I wouldn't be surprised if Orochimaru has sent someone to intervene and take Naruto out. Believe it or not, Gaara is very protective of Naruto, just like a brother, but I think in some way that Gaara needs Naruto. Temari explained with a fond smile. Does Naruto-kun know he's been watched? Hinata asked with a raised brow. Well, nobody's told him. We didn't really need to, but if I know Naruto, he most likely already knows and understands his reasons. Jiraiya explained with a chuckle. Because even Naruto-san knows he may be in danger. Shino commentated. Yes, Naruto's not an arrogant bastard like some people, he knows when to act sensible. Jiraiya said with some pride. I still can't believe it even came to this point. Sakura said with sad sigh. Get ready, they're coming. Tsunade said, causing everyone to look ahead at seeing figures. West Gate, Kakashi, Guy, Lee, Tenten, Neji, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino and Kankuro like at the other gates were waiting for the opponents. Kakashi was quite nervous about Kabuto knowing he was around his level, and what's worse is that he was a medical shinobi who knows how to take anyone down with a single strike. Guy and his team were anxious about fighting, as well as exciting. Well, Guy and Lee were at least. Tenten was looking forward to fighting only to try out her new weapons, and the best way to do that is living targets. Neji just wanted to get it over and done with, stop an incident like 4 years ago. Team 10 were also in the same boat as Neji, as they didn't want to see anybody else die. Watching Asuma die would stay with them forever. The last thing they needed was someone else to lose their lives. I wonder if anyone else has started fighting yet. Kankuro said with a sigh at having to wait. I doubt it. They're probably going to strike all at the same time. Shikamaru said as he fingered the trench knives. Keep your eyes open, people. We can't underestimate Kabuto. For all we know, they've sent more than just Kabuto. Kakashi said. Kakashi is right, everyone. Do not let your guard for anything reason. Guy agreed. As long as they hurry up, I don't care. Tenten muttered. You must keep positive ten. This will be a true test to our fighting Abelites. Lee shouted enthusiastically. Do you always have to deal with that? Ino asked Tenten with a grimace while rubbing her ear. Yup, Tenten said with a nod. Quiet, they're on their way. Neji said as he used Byakugan to observer ahead of them. It's about time, Choji said twirling his bow staff. With Orochimaru. 5 minutes earlier, Orochimaru and his forces stood a good distance from Konoha so that no one could see them. On the inside he was cackling like mad at how close they were to finally destroying Konoha. He had everything planned perfectly. He would at first go towards the east gate knowing Tsunade and Jiraiya were placed there, where later on he would have Fubuki Kakuyoku, a survivor from when she was defeated by Team 7 on their mission to Yukigakure, to join in the battle later on. Sasuke would be charged to fight Naruto at the North Gate and Tayuya to fight whoever she wanted. He would then have Kimimaro and his hired help Raiga Kurosuke to join the battle sometime after while Oto Nin fight the Konoha Nin. Kabuto will most likely fight against Kakashi where he would then later have Gurren sent to provide backup when their forces have weakened. It was perfect, for him anyway. Alright, you all know what you have to do, proceed with the plan. Orochimaru ordered causing everyone to split up. Time for a reunion, he said to himself as he headed off. North Gate. In front of Naruto and his team now stood a smirking Sasuke who looked like he had won the lottery or something. Beside him stood the red-haired girl who he remembered from the Sound 4 only now she was much more mature and beautiful. And with them was their own Oto Nin behind them with weapons drawn. As soon as Sasuke and his group had shown up, Naruto and him had been staring each other down as if trying to get the other to falter altogether creating tension in the air. Kagura could sense the tension in the air as clear as day as Sasuke's coal-black eyes seemed to pierce Naruto's almost glowing Rinnegan. She just wished someone would say something. Kurenai could tell this was not the same innocent boy from when he was in the village. No, the eyes he held were those of someone who was used to killing, something she hated to see. It only shown how far gone the boy was. Yugao could tell that Sasuke had gone so far into the dark that there would be no redemption for him, but even she knew even if there was, it wouldn't stop Naruto from killing him. Their hatred for each other ran deeper than anything she could ever know. Enko could easily tell the young man had embraced Orochimaru's teachings from the foul odor from the curse seal mark was planted on Sasuke's neck clear as day. Oh, she can't wait for Histo be kicked by Naruto. Tayuya who stood by Sasuke could also feel the tension in the air and couldn't help but admire Naruto. She didn't know if it was because she had been lonely for a while or if it was just female hormones but she couldn't help but see Naruto as and handsome man. Long time no see Sasuke-chan, how's the gay life with Orochi-tem going? Naruto said with a smirk while Sasuke's smirk slipped slightly. Sasuke glared at Naruto tempted to use his Sharingan on the blonde. How's being banished going for you? After all you got banished because you couldn't bring little ol' me back. Sasuke said with a smirk hoping to anger the blonde who just smiled. Oh, it was great, much better than being tied down to a village where most of the people there actually hate my guts. He said with a shrug angering Sasuke even further. Turning serious Naruto asked. So are we going to do this or what? I've been itching to finally kill you for 4 years now. Naruto explained to Sasuke's shock seeing how he hadn't expected Naruto to actually want to kill him. Given up brining me back to your Sakura-chan dobi? Sasuke asked with a sneer. Naruto did something he never expected, he laughed. You actually think I care about that? The minute you stabbed me with a Chidori in the chest, was the minute I declared you as an enemy of everyone and everything I find precious to me. Believe me, you won't survive today. Naruto promised before he gripped Ryujin Jaka. Now are we going to fight or what? Fine. But let's take this elsewhere where we won't be interrupted. He said vanishing into the forest. Naruto turned back to his people and gave a smile. You know what to do. I got a piece of shit to take care of. He said getting affirmatives from the girls before vanishing too. Now that Naruto-kun is gone, I can let loose. Kagura cackled madly as she hefted her scythe from her back and twirled it around before setting herself in a stance as black lightning fared around her. I got that red head. Kurenai said. I remember her being one of the Sound 4. Heard she had actually died. To be honest, I'll make sure to finish the job. She said with a blank face. Tayuya smirked at the raven-haired beauty. You think you can take me? Fine, let's see what you got. She shouted as she ran at Kurenai, aiming a punch for her head only for her to duck and kick her in the face, making her crash into a building wall and chasing after her. I guess that's our cue. Yugao said, unsheathing her Zanpakuto, causing the air around them to go cold. You bet. Let's see how many I can actually kill. Anko said with a grin while holding a kunai. Kagura chuckled and looked back. Well then, let's go. She shouted at the end, resulting in the three of them and their Konoha Suna forces to charge at the Oto Nin to commence the carnage. East Gate. Orochimaru had finally come face to face with Tsunade and Jiraiya, who were prepared to fight, only making him smirk as his shinobi appeared behind him. Well, if it isn't my two old teammates, Tsunade and Jiraiya. Orochimaru said with a malicious end. Today you die, Orochimaru. Tsunade said as she glared at him, gathering chakra in her fists. Jiraiya settled himself into a stance. I won't let you get away this time. You've done too much running, you coward. He said, making Orochimaru frown. I'm a coward. Sarutobi-sensei was a coward and I killed him. You two are cowards in your own right. Tsunade for running away from her problems and drinking from morning to night, and Jiraiya for leaving his godson to the claws of this village. Even I'm not that cruel. He exclaimed, making the two Sannin frown at having their mistakes thrown back in their faces. We may have made mistakes in our time, but at least we face them. Tsunade said with a smirk on her face. There will only be two Sannin remaining after today. Jiraiya said as the Hokage and Toad Sage ran at the snake charmer. I guess that's our cue. Kiba said as he and Akamaru ran at the opposing forces. Come Hinata, we must teach these fools to not attack Konoha shinobi. Shino said as he started to get ready to use his bugs. Hi, she said, getting into the Hyuga-style stance. They won't know what hit them when I'm through with them. Temari said with a smirk. Sakura turned to the Konoha shinobi behind her. That goes for you guys too, let's show them the way out. She said before they all shot forward, heading into the Oto shinobi. Just as Sakura was going to attack, a voice rung out. Hyoten. Sabama Fubuki. Sakura jumped to the right as what looked like frozen birds swooped by her. Turning to look at her attacker, she was surprised to see someone she thought died 4 years ago. Fubuki Kakuyoku. She whispered in shock. West Gate. In front of Kakashi and his forces stood the irritating medic Nin Kabuto Yakushi, who had that same smirk plastered on his face as if he's already won. Kakashi Hatake, so good to see you again. He said with a smirk. Wish I could say the same to you, but I don't like slime balls like yourself. Kakashi said as he readied himself. Kakashi, we will have to work together if we want to defeat him quick and easy enough. Guy said as he stood next to him. Okay, but be careful, he's a tricky bastard. He told him. Turning back to the others, he gave them an eye smile. Do what you do best. He ordered as he, Guy and Kabuto vanished to have their battle. You heard the man, let's kick some, Tenten said with a sadistic smile on her face as she grabbed her large scroll. I guess it's now or never, huh? Shikamaru said, getting ready to use his shadow. It's our time to shine. Ino said, unsheathing her tanto from her back. Let's show these bastards why we're the strongest village. Choji said, bringing his bow staff in a stance. They will know the power of youth when we are finished with these shinobi. Lee said, getting in his taijutsu stance. Get ready. Neji ordered as he slipped into the Hyuga stance. I finally get to use my new puppets. Kankuro said with a smirk as he grabbed some scrolls. And just like that, Konoha Suna met Oto to fight for their village, their freedom, its people, and most of all, their home. The invasion had begun. Forest outside of Konoha. North Gate. Naruto vs. Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke just simply stared at each other, not moving an inch, waiting for the other to start off. Years ago, when they fought, they knew everything about each other, tactics, the way they thought, and their abilities. But now in the present they knew nothing about each other. Well, Sasuke knew Naruto had the ability to use all elements, but that wasn't helpful really. but what was the Rinnegan? What is the Rinnegan? Sasuke asked, wanting to know how he can counter it if it's anything like the Sharingan. Naruto sighed and decided it was only fair he knew. The Rinnegan first appeared in the Rakudo Sennin, the person who gave us chakra. It is said to be the most revered and powerful of all the three great dojutsu, as the Sharingan and Byakugan were a byproduct from the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan is usually characterized by a ripple-like pattern around the pupil, with a grayish-purple iris and sclera. In addition to enabling the user to quickly master various jutsu, the bearer, being me right now, may also use all 6 forms of chakra nature transformation. These are Futon, Kaden, Suiden, Raiden, Doden and Gravity. Should the user be proficient in the Rinnegan, then they can recreate sub-elements. Like the Sharingan and the Byakugan, the Rinnegan also allows the user to see chakra, including otherwise hidden barriers. Sasuke stood in shock at hearing the information. It was more than he thought possible. If anything, it sounded too real to not be the truth, and despite being mortal enemies, he couldn't help but feel a small bit of pride from seeing Naruto turn from the once overconfident dumbass to a calm and collective person who has the power to back up his words. It's quite a shame he had turned out the same way. Well then, Sasuke started off as his black eyes morphed into the blazing red of the Sharingan as the 3 tomes appeared in each eye. I guess I can't underestimate you then. Naruto smirked and put his hand on his kunai pouch. Glad you can see it my way, he said as he crouched slightly. No matter what, I can't slip up. Even though I have the Rinnegan, his Sharingan can counteract it, so I can't depend too much on sight. Sasuke should be able to use genjutsu just by looking in the eyes of someone, but will it affect me? Hell, would I even know? Sasuke too placed his hand on his kunai pouch and repeated Naruto's action. I can't underestimate him, despite what I said when I read the bingo book, even I know not to take the information lightly. But he said the Rinnegan is like the Sharingan in a way. Does that mean genjutsu won't work on him? I'll have to give it a go soon. Naruto flipped one of his 3-pronged kunai out and swung it at Sasuke, who repeated the action, throwing a regular kunai at Naruto's. However, as both kunai come in contact, Naruto's cut straight through Sasuke's one like a knife would cut through butter. Sasuke looked wide-eyed before he noticed something. Is that chakra enveloping the kunai, and why is it that shape? Sasuke, seeing the danger, only had time to tilt his head out of the way, causing him to get a cut on his cheek, allowing the kunai to pass by. Looking at where the kunai struck, he notices it had cut clean through a tree and split a rock in half that was behind it. Naruto chuckled at Sasuke's wide-eyed expression as he viewed what a single kunai could do. It's amazing what one can do with futon manipulation, is it not? Naruto asked rhetorically. How the hell did you do that? Sasuke demanded as he stared at Naruto's eyes with his Sharingan blazing colored eyes. Naruto shakes his head at the Uchiha's stupidity. Didn't I just tell you? By adding futon to the kunai, I am able to make it so sharp it will cut through anything. That is the greatest advantage of futon chakra. It can cut through anything given the time to train in it. Naruto explained simply. Sasuke snarled at Naruto and shot forward with incredible speed that surprised Naruto greatly. As Sasuke came close, he delivered an uppercut to Naruto, sending him up. Jumping up after him gave Naruto a strong combo to the chest, causing Naruto spit out some blood. Unknown to Sasuke though was that during the combo strike, Naruto had managed to place a Hiraishin seal onto Sasuke's back. Sasuke then watched as Naruto started to fall, acted fast by swinging his foot down on his stomach, forcing Naruto down to the ground. As Sasuke came back down, he yelled, "Shishi Renden," as he slammed down on Naruto with his foot, causing a massive explosion. Sasuke jumped back and looked at the dust cloud with a smirk on his face, believing he had beaten Naruto. Ha! This is as far as you have come, how pathetic. Oh, and why do you say that? Said a voice that was by his ear. Tilting his head slightly, he saw Naruto's face by his. He was unable to speak as he felt a stinging pain in his back as he was sent sailing across the training ground before smashing into a tree. Sasuke looked back to see Naruto's knee bent from the attack he had just received from the blonde, To think such an attack at close range with barely any space could be so powerful for it to send him across the ground. How the hell did you get behind me? Sasuke snarled. Naruto, however, smiled. When we were up in the air, I placed a Hiraishin seal on you, allowing me to teleport to you whenever I want.